Good morning, members of parliament, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, those following via social media, and members of the media. Welcome to this meeting of the Committee of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, the Committee of VSA, meeting number 5 of today, Friday, June 10th, 2022. A special welcome to the Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, Mr. Omar Otley, as well as his support staff and the civil servants of the Ministry of VSA. We'll allow them to introduce themselves later. For now, we've established a quorum of 7 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I've received notice of absence from the MPs William Marlin and the MP Westcott William. Do we have any other notifications from the floor at this time? That not being the case, I thank you, members of parliament, and we go over to the agenda points. For this meeting, we have as agenda points, first, a briefing from the Ministry of VSA regarding the enforcements of the Landsveror geneesmiddelenvoorziening in response to concerns in society that products known for rudimentary dermally applied treatments such as Vicks, Icy Hot, Alcolado, and Bengay cannot be sold by local supermarkets. And 2, the steps needed, be it legislatively or otherwise, to allow CBD products to be sold by local businesses. This is IS 367 of the 2021-2022 parliamentary year, dated December 13th, 2021, and was requested by my person. It is good to mention that this meeting was originally scheduled to be held on Wednesday, April 13, 2022, but was postponed until further notice. We go over to agenda point 1. On December 13, 2021, Parliament received a letter from MP Bryson with the request that a meeting of the Committee of Public Health, Social Development and Labor be convened to discuss the aforementioned agenda point. The presence of the civil servants of the Ministry of TIAT and/or VSA was also requested, hence the agenda point for today. Allow me to elucidate a little bit on this request before we go over to the Minister. Members of Parliament and to the public viewing, you might have taken note of a release that was issued by the Public Prosecutor's Office, which headlined, "Supermarket Fined for Selling Medicines Without a License." It read, and this is on the 3rd, this press release of the 3rd of December, yes, 3rd of December 2021, a Phillipsburg supermarket has been ordered by the Court of First Instance to pay a fine of 700 guilders for selling items considered medicines by law. Those items include creams and ointments such as Vicks Vapor Rub. The law related to medicinal items only permits products listed as medicines to be sold in a pharmacy by doctors or in stores with a special permit from the Minister of VSA. The supermarket was not in possession of such a permit. Unregistered pharmaceuticals sold without a permit may have a bad effect on health. The illegally stocked items were confiscated from the supermarket and will be destroyed. This brought quite some questions across within the community because it has been, while it is clear, maybe not in direct line with the law, it has become quite a custom in St. Martin for many years, at least even since I was a child, to know that you were able to go and buy products like Vapor, Bengay, Alcolado, and these type of things that are technically seen as medicinal products, but it became customary within our community for people within the community to have access to these products from even the smallest supermarkets in their districts. However, of course, this is a very serious piece of jurisdiction that has happened, and I can imagine from now on supermarkets would be very hesitant about doing this without complying with the law. I think it's prudent for the VSA committee to hear from the ministry their thoughts on this and maybe some possible solutions, as the release did mention that there's an opportunity or a way for a special permit to be granted to supermarkets. I'm not sure if that's one of the options, or if the ministry would even consider adjustments to the law to make some of these more rudimentary physically applied ointments and so on be an exception, that supermarkets can do this. Some of the concerns that we also received, or I also received within the community, was especially with the elderly, where access to this type of thing only being at pharmacies can sometimes mean that instead of having it right down the road at their supermarket, they actually now have to be transported to another place or have someone pick it up at the pharmacy. And the other concern would be, from a supply and demand and a market perspective, if less places are selling a product, it is possible that the prices of these products could possibly increase. So with those concerns being listed and that elucidation, I would give the word then to the Honorable Minister of VSA for any opening remarks and some ideas on this topic at hand. And then we go to the next agenda.
Let me see if it's morning still. Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the honor to be here to explain the Parliament and the public of St. Martin on this very, very touching issue. I presented a presentation that will be viewed to the Parliament and the public. Without further ado, I would like to start so we can dive right into it, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, let's see if we can get the presentation on screen, and then we'll move forward with that presentation. Do we need to adjourn? We will need to adjourn just to switch over to the presentation. I'll adjourn for 5 minutes. Okay, meeting adjourned for 5 minutes. Public, we took a brief adjournment to prepare the presentation that is now on screen, and without further ado, Minister, you have the word.
Thank you once again, Honorable Chairman. Parliament meeting agenda point 2, enforcement of national ordinance on supply of medicinal products. Agenda point 2, briefing from the Minister of VSA regarding the enforcement of national ordinance on supply of medicinal products. In response to the concerns of the community that products known for rudimentary dermally applied treated such as Vicks, Icy Hot, Alcalado, and Bengay cannot be sold in local supermarkets. Why must medicine be regulated? Countries should have regulations in place to ensure safety, the effectiveness, quality of the medication circulating in their markets. The use of ineffectiveness, poor quality, harmful medicines can result in therapeutic failure, exacerbation of disease, resistance to medicine, and sometimes death. It also undermines confidence in the health system, health professionals, pharmaceutical manufacturers, and distributors. Government must therefore establish a regulatory authority to ensure that the import, manufacture, trade, and the use of medicines are regulated effectively to protect and promote public health. The regulatory authority of a country is responsible for the oversight of medicine to ensure the product on the market are legally authorized, safe, and perform as claimed when used according to directions. Principles of medicine regulation. Licensing of manufacturer, import, export, distribution, promotion, and advertisement of medicine, assessing the safety, effectiveness, and quality of medicines, and issuing marketing authorizations, inspecting and surveilling of manufacturers, imports, wholesalers, and dispensers of medicine, controlling and monitoring the quality of medicine on the market, controlling, promotion, and advertisement of these medicines. IVSA, National Regulatory Authority. Legal basis, the Inspectorate Ordinance, as you can see, is presented for members of Parliament. In order to achieve the objective, the Pharmaceutical Division is responsible for supervising compliance with legal regulations, detecting violations in the field of supply of medicine, the trade in medicine, and related products, and the practice of pharmacy, contributing to international corporations in the fight against illicit trafficking in narcotic drugs, psychotropic substances, and chemicals. The mandate of IVSA consists of 4 pieces of legislation, in which is also presented to the members of Parliament. The National Ordinance of Pharmaceuticals regulated the followings: the assessment of the quality, safety, effectiveness of medicine, import and distribution of medicine, manufacture, preparation of medicine, sale of medicine to the consumer. As stated in Agenda Point 2, there are concerns that certain medicinal products can no longer be sold in supermarkets. This is because they are considered medicines and therefore are specific stipulations pertaining to medicine. With regards to a list of products that are considered the general public household use, this is not a term, general household use. The term household use is subjective, and the Inspectorate does not enforce legislation based on household use items. It is important to note that the term over-the-counter simply means that the medicine can be purchased without a prescription. It does not signify that these medicines may be sold outside of a pharmacy or that the quality standards may be ignored. Lastly, the import and sale of medicines is not business as usual. Persons are required to have knowledge of the associated risk and should have some knowledge of the pharmaceutical. And this is why only licensed and knowledgeable individuals may do so. At the moment, there are no registered medicines imported by local wholesalers on the island that would qualify to be sold in supermarkets. The majority of over-the-counter medicines are unregistered on St. Martin and therefore can only be imported by pharmacists and with the permission of the Inspectorate in accordance to Article 2, Paragraph B of the National Decree on Packaged Drugs. So therefore, with that being said, what is medicine? Medicine is substance used for cure, alleviation, prevention of any ailment, disease, symptoms, pain, injuries, inflammatory in humans, insofar as they are usually presented or dispensed in a pharmacy. Definition of medicine, Article 1, sub E. I think we went over this. Substance which are contained in a packaging or object which are clearly intended to be delivered to the consumer in the packaging, or that the object and which are indicated to advertise in any way as being suitable for cure, alleviation, prevention of any ailments, symptoms, pain, injuries. Who is authorized to import packaged medicine? Here we have the National Degree on Packaging for MPs to peruse. Importer, anyone who imports packaged medicine and delivers them pursuant to the license as referred to in Article 3, Paragraph 1, under D of the National Ordinance. Who is authorized to prepare and deliver packaged medicine? Article 3 of the law authorize the practice pharmacies are pharmacists, B, pharmacist assistants during the performance of their duties in a pharmacy, provided that they are supervised by a pharmacist. C, other persons including legal entities who may have been granted a license for this purpose by the minister. The license extends either to supply or to the preparation and wholesale distribution of medicine. The license holder is not allowed to sell over the counter nor to keep an open shop. In conclusion, supermarkets are not authorized, licensed to import, prepare, or deliver, dispense packaged medicine. This practice is at the moment only for pharmacies. Medicines found in supermarkets on St. Martin are not registered and are imported unlawfully. The quality and safety of medicine for sale of the supermarket cannot be guaranteed. No verification, source, quality, safety, or effectiveness. That is it, Mr. Chairman, for this agenda point.
Thank you, Minister, for the presentation. I think you've outlined, especially from a legislative perspective, what the reasoning, I guess, was behind, let's say, these products that I mentioned in my introduction being considered medicine. So that part is clear. I'm sure there will probably be maybe some other questions. If members of Parliament, you can indicate on the speakers list or here if you want to speak. We do have first MP De Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Minister, to you and your team, to my colleagues, to the persons in the tribune, the viewing and listening public. Thank you very much for the presentation. When you were ending it, you brought up one of the, I don't know if we should call it an advantage or disadvantage of globalization, but when production, manufacturing and production shifts from, let's say, what we would have known from, let's say, our sole supplier being in North America to other parts of the world, our, acceptable levels of what items to import gets a little bit muddled because companies are international, they're global, they're located around the world under one umbrella name. So as an example, I will go off and list a name such as Colgate, for instance. I'm sure people have noticed when you go to the supermarkets here, you see different languages in them. Very often I've seen beauty products as well as health, like hygiene products, basically being in a different language where it's not even in English. And I know personally someone that was affected when they bought items from a supermarket, or doesn't matter where it is, where the item is a common day item, like a shampoo item, where it actually burned your hair. And you can hear a lot of stories like this. My question is, while there was a lot of uproar for taking these things out of the supermarkets, it raises a bigger problem for me in the terms of the quality. And I feel like that's a lot of how do you say, testing or approval to do in advance of what we're importing, because we are an island, so we import pretty much everything. And where do we draw the line? And who is the person that is going to be testing all of these products? How do we do it? Because how do you tell me, for instance, that Colgate is not safe? I've known Colgate as my toothpaste my whole life. But when we are now having suppliers on the island that are importing Colgate, that it's all in Arabic, I can't see the contents, and is that acceptable to us? Do we have Colgate as an acceptable supplier and manufacturer? So do you see where I'm going with this? That's really just where I use Colgate as an example because I've seen it. And this is not about items in France. This is not about items in French because we are bordered there, but it goes along. So I just want to know, where do we draw the line on keeping our people safe and having sufficient personnel to be able to approve these things for us? Thank you very much.
Thank you, MP De Weaver. Members of Parliament, would you, or Minister, would you prefer to answer directly, or should we go straight over maybe to all the MPs at one time? We'll just go ahead with the MPs? Yeah, there we go. Let's do that. Then we have next MP Emmanuel.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and good morning to you and our the Honorable Minister and his support staff. I think it's a very important discussion we are having here today, and I want to dovetail from my colleague, De Weaver. And the question is exactly what she said. You know, where and how do we stop? And here's the reason why I'm asking this question. Who came up with this policy that it can't be sold in the regular grocery stores and only pharmacies? Because my question to that would be, essentially, why? And here's the reason why I'm saying this, Minister, through you, Mr. Chairman. I think most oftentimes we forget that we border the French side, that we are attached to the French side. In every grocery store, you can also get those products on the French side too as well. But let me draw your attention to this. So we are talking about Icy Hot, we are talking about Vicks, we are talking about those sort of things. What about bleaching cream? I can go in Victor's and buy bleaching cream. Bleaching cream. And then in your presentation, you make mention of alleviation. I circle that, to alleviate. What about a cough drop? A sweet. It's to alleviate a sore throat. Where do we stop? But here's the thing, Mr. Chairman, and I brought it to your attention the last time when you were here concerning pharmacies. We don't have a 24-hour pharmacy. We have the one pharmacy in Maho that opens up, I think, until 10 o'clock. But take someone living all the way in Belvedere. In Belvedere, they will have to pass all the grocery stores that is open until 8 and 9 to go quite all the way down to Maho to get a little Vicks because they want to get a rub down because their child catch a cold or a draft. But let me show you what is even more dangerous. If you're saying it can't be sold, or it should not you, but the reason for it that it can't be sold, you know how I operate. This is a product that has been banned from St. Martin. For whatever reason, I don't know why. But we grew up on Buckley's. We grew up on Buckley's. But you can't find Buckley's nowhere, not even in the regular stores, not in the pharmacies, nowhere on St. Martin you can find Buckley's. Hold on. Buckley's. You know how I got Buckley's, Mr. Chairman? Amazon.com. Vicks, Amazon.com. Icy Hot, Amazon.com. I don't even need to go to the grocery store no more. So is the inspectorate coming to my house to check my online account to see if I'm ordering online? So that's what I'm asking. What is it exactly are we trying to prevent? That it can't be sold in stores and only in the pharmacy, or the health aspect for the society? Which one is it? Because if it's only that it can't be sold and only in a particular area or a particular business, then that's unfair. That's unfair when it comes to equality in business. The consumer have the right to choose and decide where they want to buy their product. Because what's going to happen? All the pharmacies can come together and say, I'm going to jack up the Icy Hot and the Vicks to $20. And the small one, and nobody can say nothing because only they can sell it. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what is it we are trying to prevent, or what is it we are trying to secure. Which one is it? From the presentation, I just saw the national ordinance, I saw the reasons, I saw what is alleviation, symptoms, what is it, but I'm not getting exactly what it is. That's why it freaks me out sometimes. Who does come up with these sort of things? Because you really can't make it up. Because, I mean, in this day and age, how far are they thinking? How far are they thinking? So I would pass the 9 grocery stores in St. Peter's, South Reward, all on Illage Road, all in Simpson Bay, and go all the way down Maho just to buy a Vicks. We running ball, you running ball, you sprain your ankle, you want to rub it down with some Icy Hot, you got to leave and go all the way down. Because it's late at night, the boys them decide to play a little late ball, because it got lights, and you sprain your ankle, you got to go quite all the way down to get a little Icy Hot. It doesn't make sense, Mr. Chairman. It doesn't make sense. I went online because I realized Buckley's used to work for me. And I get it on Amazon. I can Google Amazon right now. I can Google Amazon right now. This is Amazon, Vicks. Here it is, Vicks. I can scroll down and you can find Buckley's. There it is. Buckley's on Amazon. So you're preventing, so we are preventing the stores and them from here selling it, and I can order it just as easy, Mr. Chairman. I think it needs to change. I honestly do think it needs to change. I don't see the reason, the exact reason why it can't be sold in regular grocery stores. It's not a prescription that you need to buy these sort of things. It's over the counter, like you made mention. But what I'm saying, we are stopping it from one area. We are stopping it from this area, but it's ballooned and can be sold in this area. It doesn't make sense, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MP Emmanuel. Next, we have MP Pantaflet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to the chair, my colleagues in Parliament, the Honourable Minister and the support staff, persons that are sitting and persons that are viewing. You're not disturbing me, I'm thinking. Mr. Chairman, one reality that we have to face is that government can't regulate everything. That's number one. My colleague, MP mentioned it, the issue of globalization, and some 20-something years ago when I got familiar with the word globalization, I realized, I said, you know something? We are in trouble. Because those that have the funds and the availability to do so, which are the multinational corporations and so on, will use their resources in order to do whatever they feel like doing, wherever they feel like doing it. My only concern, Mr. Chairman, through you, is the medications that are being brought into the island. It is impossible for government to control that thoroughly. The issue is what should be allowed to be sold in supermarkets, because there are certain medication, probably, Mr. Chairman, through you, that are harmful to the user. And that's why I believe that the pharmacists or the pharmacies are the ideal places where certain things should be sold, because these persons are trained as to what kind of medications, what the use for it is, what can harm, what cannot harm. I am happy what the minister is trying to do, but I'll be honest, based on my colleague there, it is going to come in no matter what. Now, how much can we control? Again, all I'm saying is it should be medication that definitely, if you want to sell it, and again, as I'm speaking, I'm thinking about what is written in the licenses as being issued to supermarkets, stipulate exactly what they are allowed to sell. Because I think, I haven't looked at them, I don't think a supermarket can sell whatever they feel like, I would think. I don't think they can sell clothing and so on, I don't know. But I believe that whatever is stipulated in the licenses, that's what you're allowed to sell. So what you can do is look at the license and say, wait a minute, it is stipulated you're allowed to sell X, Y, Z, so you can't sell something else. If you want, you have to apply for it. That thing we can start, but honestly, to stop this process is not going to be easy. I agree that we should look at some kind of control, because the fact is, being a small island again, and then you'll hear something was brought in and so on, somebody gets hurt, ends up in the hospital, and then you'll hear, but why didn't government do X, Y, Z? Why didn't government do X, Y, Z? And that's the problem. And when government tries, so you say, well, you're going too far. So, I leave it at that, but my issue is, Mr. Chairman, through you is, what are they allowed to sell legally based on the licenses or the permits that they have when it comes to these medications? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Pantaflet. I don't have any other speakers signed in to speak. Minister, I think you've heard more or less some of the expected concerns still that remains, despite the fact that you've elucidated, let's say, the legal reason behind such initiatives to not have such products in the supermarkets. Some mention has been made of a possible loophole where, hey, people can actually just order this stuff online and it gets to them anyway, something that is impossible for the Ministry of VSA to control, as was highlighted as well. I would like to maybe summarize it by saying, in the press release from the public prosecutor, it did mention that the minister can give some sort of permission for certain products to be sold, certain medicines to be sold. So that caught my attention, because it's as if, I don't want to say pass the buck, but the OM presented their case in such a way that, look, if they have a special permit from the Minister of Public Health, Social Development, and Labor, it kind of gives the impression that, well, it's up to the ministry to then maybe give such a permission. So my question would be, is that something that can be considered, where we identify a list of these products in consultation with the supermarket and say, okay, what were the top 10 of these medicines that really were treated, let's say from almost a common law perspective, as just an over-the-counter product, but by definition, yes, it is indeed a medicine. But can we maybe identify some of those? And then what the government can do is actually say, no problem, we have what, 100 supermarkets on the island? You would like that permission? Well, it's going to cost you 1,000 guilders a year to get that permission. You've just brought additional income to the Ministry of VSA and to the government. That maybe would be one of my suggestions. And then from a risk perspective, what is really the medicinal risk of the let's say a VIX? We understand certain medicinal products, you want to be careful about offering it, but is there a high level of risk of such products being readily available to the consumer? When I go to a pharmacy, if I purchase Vapor Rub, that's actually something that I go in and I pick it up. It's not like a pharmacist asks me, hey, do you have any symptoms? Do you have this? And so on. So there's no really a check and balance that's being done at the pharmacy from a consumer perspective. It's just a matter of, well, maybe the pharmacy is ensuring that this is an actual legitimate version of Vapor Rub VIX. So that would be something I'd be interested to hear as well. There's also another thing, especially from the Latin American community on the island and also others that make use of this product, which is Agua de Florida. That has always been something from young that, we call it Agua de Florida. It's very Florida water. Okay, I didn't know. No, that's the English term. Hey, my mother's Colombian and that's how she taught me it. But that water in itself is something was very common in the supermarkets, but I don't see it as common in pharmacies. As a matter of fact, some pharmacies don't even carry it. They might have alcolado or different versions of it, but that specific one, they might not. So now it's not in supermarkets, and it's also not in many pharmacies. So if the pharmacies basically choose not to carry a product, it now has disappeared from the market entirely. So that is also a a concern, specifically that type of product. What happens if the pharmacy chooses not to carry such a product? Then it becomes completely unavailable within the country. So yeah, those would be the additional questions I have, Minister. You received a few of them. We do have a second agenda point, so one option would be, committee members, is to we do have another speaker? Yes, MP Bijlani.
Good morning to you, Chairman. Thank you. Good morning to the Griffier. Good morning to the Honorable Minister, supporting staff, and my colleagues here. I would really add up on MP Emmanuel, what he mentioned. It's really, let's move on from this third world status. We don't want to be like a third world country. Let's move on. What points he raised up there are really valid. Second thing, what Chairman said, that income-wise, I don't want it to be 1,000 guilder. Haha. You hardly sell these kind of medicines, and you want to charge 1,000 guilders? No. Please don't get this into an income level, but yeah, a nominal fee. And the third thing, my important point to ask is, have you got any data from the hospital that using these over-the-counter medicines have got a lot of patients in there, or they've been treating those kind of patients over there? Do we have any backup of why are we stopping these kind of simple medicines to be sold in supermarkets and all, and there's no 24-hour pharmacy here, which is a very valid point. And things like these at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, anytime can trouble be there, and we need some kind of medicines on hand. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And also, to add to that point, the gas stations, which many of which are, or some of which are open 24/7, used to sell them, and now they've removed them. So that would have been a 24/7 option to get some of these products. So members of Parliament, we have MP Gums as well.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon to everyone. Apologies. MP Emmanuel had me in some childhood trauma with the Buckley's thing, but I've overcome it now. Interesting points, and I agree with all the comments from my colleagues. For me, what was strange about the OM's, about the press release, was that these are topical analgesics, basically, which are just, you can buy them in a Walmart, you can buy it in a Publix in the US, and it's not in the pharmacy section, it's literally just on the counter next to the deodorant. Where it comes to cough syrups and such, that is in, I think, the definition then that is used in the US, true medication that is limited, even if you can buy it in a supermarket. But I think my general question then is, has the ministry considered changing the legislation to kind of specify more on what is actually a medicine? Because again, icy hot is not elsewhere, in my experience, considered to be a medication. If you're talking about nasal sprays, cough syrups, antihistamines, other things like that, lozenges, we've all watched it on TV, Breaking Bad, you know what you can do with those things in large quantities. But so is that a consideration then? Because I think all of us kind of share the same confusion about icy hot and Bengay. But of course, they are not NyQuil, Dayquil, which you can, interestingly enough, also buy at some of these smaller supermarkets, which I do not believe should be permitted. So if the ministry could share some insight on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes with what I mentioned, like risk management. Some items are much riskier than others, indeed. So members of Parliament, the way we can do this, does the minister need additional time to answer these points in this agenda? So if it's not too long, then we'll just do the adjournment and then allow you to come back. And then if there's any additional follow-ups, we can handle those then. So we'll adjourn for 15 minutes. Good afternoon once again, members of the Committee of Public Health, Social Affairs, and Labor. Welcome back to this committee meeting where we have the Minister of VSA with his team. And we're currently on the agenda point, a briefing from the Ministry of VSA regarding the enforcement of the Landsveror Geneesmiddelenvoorzieningen in response to concerns in society that products known for rudimentary dermally applied treatments such as Vicks, Icy Hot, Alcolado, and Bengay cannot be sold by local supermarkets. We had various questions from members of the committee to which the minister asked for some time to answer, and he has returned with those answers, so I give you the word.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you allow me, I would like Ms. Ashanti Van Heinigen to answer the questions.
Thank you, Ms. Van Heinigen. You have the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of Parliament, and the listening public. So the first question from MP De Weaver: who's the person testing the products? Where do we draw the line on keeping our people safe? And in what do we allow to be imported? Or do we have sufficient personnel to be able to approve all goods that are imported? Well, the reason why it is so important for us to know where our products are coming from is because we don't have the capacity to test on the island. We don't have the financial resources nor the human resources to test these products. This is why medicines are regulated, and if the source is verified before it is imported, then you have a high chance that the quality is good. MP Emmanuel asked, who came up with what you can sell over the counter and in supermarkets, and that pharmacies are only permitted to import medicines? Well, the legislator decided this, and this was based on Dutch legislation. What about bleaching creams? Bleaching creams are considered to be commodities and are also banned in the United States and in the European Union because they can be very dangerous. They can also cause skin cancer. What about cough drops, which is a sweet? Where do we stop? It goes back to quality. The same applies to cough drops and any other type of medicine. Even though there may be a little risk of having adverse reactions to a cough drop, you still need to ensure that the quality is good of the cough drop. You have to ensure that the source is legitimate and that it's not contaminated with antibiotics or other things that may be harmful to the health. The third question from MP Emmanuel, that Buckley's has been banned. Is the inspectorate coming to check my house, to check my online account to see what I'm ordering? To our knowledge, Buckley's has not been banned. It's most likely that Buckley's is not registered on St. Martin and therefore not a part of the legitimate supply chain of medicines. When it comes to ordering medicines for personal use, that the law does allow that, the consumer thereby assumes responsibility for the quality. So persons are allowed to import medicines for personal use. I move on to the questions from MP Pantaflet. What are supermarkets allowed to sell legally based on their licenses? Supermarkets are not allowed to sell any products that are considered to be medicines based on their current licenses. However, there is a possibility for establishments to receive an exemption to import certain medicines, and this license can be given by the Minister of Public Health. However, the medicines are still subject to the import and registration requirements because we still have to be able to ensure the quality and safety of those medicines. I move on to the questions from MP Bryson. Can a supermarket apply for a permit to be able to sell certain products? Is it something that can be considered? I think that was answered in the previous question. Second question, what is the medicinal risk of using Vicks? Is there a high level of risk in these products if these products are readily available to the public? Well, there's a risk to using any type of medicine, including Vicks, especially how persons of the community tend to use Vicks, which is not in line with the requirements for the use of Vicks at times. However, once more, the source and the quality of Vicks should still be guaranteed. Whether it's a prescription-only drug or a drug that is over the counter, what's important is that the quality is guaranteed once it reaches the market. Remember, we don't have the capacity to test products once they are locally available on the island. So we need to ensure that anything that we're importing, that the quality is good, that it's safe, but that it's also effective. The last question from MP Bryson was about Agua de Florida. What happens if the pharmacy chooses not to sell such a product? Well, if the pharmacy chooses not to sell such a product, a consumer can rely on import for personal use, of course. I move on to the questions from MP Bijlani. Have you had many cases in hospital that have had issues with over-the-counter medicines? To our knowledge, we don't have any data available on that because it's hard for a consumer to determine whether their ailment is a result of over-the-counter medicine. Usually they would just present at the hospital and they would receive help, but there's no data on the source of their complaint and that it's linked to over-the-counter medicines. I move on to the question from MP Gums. Has the ministry considered changing the legislation to specify more what is a medicine? Minister will answer that question.
Thank you, Ms. Van Hannigan. MP Gums, yes, we are in discussion. We have been in discussion with the inspectorate since the article came out on, how to meet modern times. I see that the MP jumped up in his seat when he heard of the law, but in actuality, the law is from 1960. The law is there, so they are following the accordance of the law, which is there from 1960. We are in 2022, so of course adjustment needs to be possible, needs to be considered. But however, the law is there, and the law is the law. Also, to touch base on the personal responsibility, we cannot tell you what to order for your personal use, but then you assume the responsibility. Once it's in the supermarket and it's for public consumption, that's where the inspectorate, according to the law, has the responsibility. Now, the product itself may not be the issue. With the product of medicine, there's a regulated wholesaler, there's a proposed way of transporting, and there's a lot of other technical stuff that even me, myself, can't list them all. So tomorrow, 100 supermarkets can't send for exemption. I want that to be clear. The supermarket has to have agreement, number one, with a registered, am I using the word registered, legal wholesaler, and it has to be a medicine that is inspected and regulated in order to go through the channels through the country. So it's not like tomorrow you can just say, Minister, I want an exemption to sell Vicks, and we have no idea where you're getting this Vicks from, who is this wholesaler, is it regulated, and so forth, and does it has the approval of the inspectorate.
That would be all the answers? Thank you. Thank you, Minister, for the answers to the question. I don't know if I believe there was one question about the French side. I don't know if that was addressed as well, about the challenge of us having this law on the Dutch side, but in French side supermarkets, it's readily available. Is there any consideration for how we handle that?
Okay.
Well, the French side also has their supply chain for medicines, and it's regulated there. So I'm sure that the medicines that are available in the supermarkets there come through the legitimate supply chain and have been tested to be of good quality.
Thank you. Thank you for that elucidation, Ms. Van Heinigen, and thank you for your earlier answers as well. And Minister, members of Parliament, before we go to agenda point 2, if there's any additional remarks or questions, we have MP Emmanuel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think I'm even more conflicted now with the answers, but I thank you very much for the answers. But you made mention that the legislators are the one that came up with the law, and then the minister made mention, Mr. Chairman, that it's a Dutch law that is there from since the 1960s that we are following. We gotta ask who came up with it, because I am trying to understand that we here in St. Martin is following a Dutch law for the consumption of these, not the consumption, but for the usage of these sort of things not being sold in local grocery stores? If I understand you clearly.
Maybe what we should do is allow that point specifically to be clarified before you continue with your questioning, yeah?
Yeah, but that's the one I wanted clarification on.
Yes, so the point regarding the I think it was mentioned that it was based on a Dutch legislation or something like that, if that can be further clarified.
Sure. The pharmaceutical law that we have is based on an old Dutch geneesmiddelenwet. The Dutch law has since then been updated. However, the bones of that law are still applicable today. The principles for the regulation of medicines are still laid down in that piece of legislation. So although it is from 1960, the bones are good. Many third world countries don't even have these regulations that we have, and as such, they have a lot of medicines on their markets that are counterfeit and that are dangerous for the public. So yes, our law is from 1960. However, the bones are good. We just need to enhance it and update it somewhat.
Okay.
Continue, MP.
Okay,
Manuel.
thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Now, with that being said, now here's the part that have me conflicted in terms of how are we going to adopt the bones of that law? Because then, if you are telling me that the drugs coming into the country comes to a registered legal wholesaler, then who is to regulate the registered legal wholesaler? Why I'm saying this then, Mr. Chairman, because, Mr. Chairman, erectile dysfunction is considered a disease. Then I'll have to ask the Honorable Minister if he ever been into a sex shop. Because in the sex shop, there's creams, there's rubs, there's pills, there's all sort of things to assist in that. So then that's what I'm asking, because I'm listening to what is being said, Mr. Chairman, that's why I'm asking the question. Who regulates the registered legal wholesaler? Because I have to ask the question. Because in that industry, there's a number of things that can be used to treat what is considered a disease. And if I listen to the presentation, we are talking about supplements, ailments, all sort of things. Then the question comes back again. Who is watching the one that's supposed to be watching what is coming in? If you understand what I'm saying, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. Yeah. Why everybody looking so funny?
Thank you, MP. You got an additional question. I guess the inspector will be able. Yes. MP, no. Got a question. I mean, the question from the MP, and if the minister
Yes.
or it will be Ms. Van Heiningen again.
Yes.
You have the word.
Yes, thank you for the question, MP Emmanuel. Well, the law prescribes that before a medicine is allowed to be imported, there's a registration committee that evaluates that medicine based on efficacy, quality, and safety. So that wholesaler has to be licensed, yes, but before they can even start importing a medicine, the manufacturer has to submit dossiers to that committee to be reviewed to make sure that that medicine is efficacious, that the quality is good, and that the medicine is safe. So those are the checks and balances that take place before a medicine are imported, as well as the distributor, the wholesaler, is also inspected regularly to ensure that they follow good distribution practices, which is published by the WHO for all distributors of medicines. So we ensure that the transport of the medicine occurs according to international standards, and that during transport and storage, that the quality of the medicine is maintained. So the quality is evaluated by the registration committee, but also the transport and storage while it's on St. Martin or before it reaches St. Martin is also ensured by the inspectorate. So the entire supply chain of medicines is regulated, and because it's important. Because you want to ensure that there are safe medicines on the island. You want to ensure that the medicines that are supposed to help people do not harm them. Those are the reasons behind these laws.
If there are no other MPs, I do have an additional follow-up point on that, because at the end, we still have, I think, MPs, the concern, we understand, let's say, the technical aspects of why these checks and balances are needed, but the reality of the fact that for decades in St. Martin, these products were accessible, whether it was due enforcement or not, they were accessible and available, and now they're not. I understand, let's say you mentioned that, you don't, even if you were to give the special permission, there still needs to be a check and balance. If the supermarkets were to come together and order, let's say Vicks from an approved supplier, and then request the permission to say, Minister, we want to be able to stock this Vicks and these other different products. Here's the supplier we're buying it from. Can the dispensation be given to them as was suggested by the prosecutor's office, that there is a method for them to get that. Because that's really what the community and the supermarkets would like to know. Is there any way we can get these products back on our shelves, because it's very important for us to have them? I'll allow the minister, and then we go to MP Brownbill.
Yes, I'm having a discussion right now with the inspectorate. As she said, it still needs to go through the regular importation route. I don't know if you want to explain that process.
So I think she really explained that route. So literally, it's imported by an approved importer, but now the retailer is saying, I want to stock that approved product on my shelf. If they purchase that from an approved wholesaler distributor and then stock it on their shelf, do they still need a special permission? That's what so they still do. But is that something readily available? Is that that the public and these supermarkets can be informed? If you purchase these products from an approved retailer, what is now then the route for me to apply for that permission to stock them on my shelves again, so that we can get these things back in the supermarket?
Yes, one of the major problems is that a lot of these medicines or over-the-counter medicines are currently not registered on St. Martin. And the law only permits certain persons to import unregistered medicine. So if a wholesaler were to register them, then it would be able to, then the establishment supermarkets would be able to request a license and then purchase it from them and have them on the shelves in certain quantities, of course, and the types of medicines to be determined by the ministry and the minister.
Then before going to MP Brownbill and Minister, I would ask you to really explore that option, because that might be a way for us to have a nice legal way to get these back on the shelf, where the wholesaler registered these products, the most common ones that were deemed profitable and that made sense for them to stock. If it's registered, they then request the permission, if I understand correctly. If I'm wrong, do correct me. It's registered by the wholesaler, those products, let's say it's 10 of them. The supermarket then requests permission from the ministry in order to sell them, and a certain quantity, the specific product, and then they can go back on the shelves. I think if that's the case, then maybe that can be publicized to the business community, and maybe that route will be a way to get them back on. Let me allow the minister, then Brownbill, then you.
Yes, but clearly, like as the inspector said, the wholesaler has to register these products. Now, at the moment, the law does not allow us to approve unregistered products. So in the meantime, whether it's, I would have to see the reason why the wholesalers tend to not register these products. It's a business thing. I have no involvement in that. But in the meantime, again, we are looking into the law, adjustments of the law. It won't be, of course, as we know the trajectory of everything, and it won't be today, tomorrow, but we are looking into the amendments. But that is a route as long as the wholesaler registers these products, indeed.
Very good. MP Brownbill, then MP Emmanuel, and if possible, I'd like to move on to Agenda 2 after that.
Good afternoon to my colleagues. Good afternoon to the Minister of VSA and staff. I just wanted to add one more question, which was with the wholesale importer, the licensed importer. Are they exclusive, or are they like the only importer of pharmaceuticals, or somebody can go and register for a license and become an importer of pharmaceuticals? Thank you.
I guess the minister will have to put on his TIAT hat a bit for that one, because that's more like if there's a moratorium on anyone acquiring such a license.
So actually, like, is there only one then right now?
Okay.
You know?
Yes. Is there a monopoly, or is there a moratorium, or is it open?
There's currently no moratorium on wholesalers, and there are multiple wholesalers currently operational on the island.
Okay. Answers your question, MP Brownbill? Yeah. And then we'll conclude with MP Emmanuel.
Sure, no problem. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, specifically, we are talking about Vicks and Alcolado and Icy Hot and those sort of things. But Mr. Chairman, comes back to the wholesaler and the registered product. Most of the grocery stores also use the same wholesaler. So if the wholesaler is already have the product registered already, what difference does it make whether it's in the pharmacy or if it's in the supermarket? because most of them use the same wholesaler as it is already for those same products. So that's what I'm trying to get the gist of it. What it is that we are really trying to prevent. Is it because the pharmacy are licensed that they are pharmacy and the supermarkets are not, in terms of having the expertise to sell these sort of things? It's the same wholesalers on the island supplying, whether it's a pharmacy or the grocery store. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Emmanuel. And Minister or Ms. Van Heinigen? I guess Minister first.
Yeah.
You have the word.
As stated, I don't have the proof that these supermarkets are ordering from the same wholesaler, because the inspectorate in the past have found medicines that does not meet the standards that are being sold in supermarkets. This is not a secret. At the end of the day, I think this whole meeting right here is the gist of this meeting is to understand that there is a kink in the law. Point blank period, there's a kink in the law. Me being the minister and the ministry has agreed to address the matter, to look into the kink in the law. In the meantime, we have provided a way that supermarkets can possibly have access to this exemption via the correct route that is in the law. So I have to deal with the hands that I'm dealt. I'm dealing with the law that is present, and I cannot deviate from the law at the moment, despite me also acknowledging that there is a kink in the law. But it's there, and I have to work within the realms of the law.
Indeed. Thank you, Minister, for that elucidation, and Ms. Van Heinigen as well. It was much appreciated. To the support staff on this first agenda point, a good acknowledgement that it is an outdated law, and we hopefully can receive within some time frame updates to this piece of legislation. In the interim, maybe Minister informing the public of what the possibilities are in a press release or some sort of information to the business community would be very helpful. I would humbly suggest that to you as well. And members of Parliament, I thank you for your participation in this first agenda point, and we now go over to the second agenda point. Agenda point 2, the steps needed, be it legislatively or otherwise, to allow CBD products, that is cannabidiol, those products to be sold by local businesses. In the same letter of December 13, 2021, MP Bryson also requested that the aforementioned agenda point be discussed in a meeting of this committee, also with the presence of the civil servants and the Ministry of VSA, hence this agenda point. Also to elucidate on this request, earlier in the first agenda point, we discussed registered medication and accepted medication within the frameworks of our law, whereas you have products like CBD products, which is a chemical found in marijuana. Different to what is known and commonly with marijuana, CBD does not contain tetrahydrocannabinol, the psychoactive ingredient found in marijuana that produces the quote-unquote high. The usual CBD formulation is oil, but CBD is also sold as an extract, a vaporized liquid, and an oil-based capsule. Food, drinks, and beauty products are among the many CBD-infused products available online. Currently, the only CBD product approved by the Food and Drug Administration is a prescription oil called Epidiolex, while many other products, however, are state-approved and very common within various states in the United States and around the world. Aside from Epidiolex, state laws allow the use of CBD, varying use of CBD. While CBD is still being studied as a treatment for a wide range of conditions, including Parkinson's disease, schizophrenia, diabetes, multiple sclerosis, and anxiety, research supporting the drug's benefits is still indeed limited. We have been aware of some that have tried or were considering to engage in the sale of this product. However, when we look at the opium ordinance, strictly speaking, in our analysis of the opium ordinance, it is clear that hemp and hemp-derived products fall within the scope of the opium ordinance, which make them illegal. However, more and more evidence might show that CBD's benefits and the fact that it does not have the psychoactive component of marijuana, maybe consideration should be given to the legalization of this product. One of the options that I looked at as well is that specifically, interestingly, when you look within the law, it also, me find this part. Yes, within the opium ordinance, there's a very specific allowance that by national decree, products and derivatives of hemp and cannabis can be approved by the government for sale and for use, whether medicinal or not. So the purpose of this meeting is to hear from the ministry some of those technical aspects regarding CBD, any possible plans that the ministry may have, but also to have a discussion with the members of parliament to the pros and cons of introducing this within the medicinal structure of our country. Just to be clear, there is a distinction between full legalization of marijuana and specifically what we're discussing here today, which is just the cannabidiol product CBD. With that, I give the word to the Honorable Minister of Health, Omar Atli.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. I have presented a presentation. Alvin?
So we will be going back to the presentation, just going to see if we need to adjourn, or it appears that the presentation will be coming up shortly.
The next slide down, one slide down.
We're currently just switching presentations. Do we need an adjournment? Okay, we'll adjourn for 3 minutes.
Damn it, it's the same.
Good afternoon once again. We're back with the presentation on agenda point 2. I think, Minister, there's just a slight typo on your slide. This is actually agenda point 2. The steps needed, be it legislatively or otherwise, to allow CBD products to be sold by local businesses. Minister, you have the word.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No. Yeah. The responsible and safe legislation of cannabis and CBD product. Current situation, it is prohibited to prepare, process, sell, deliver, provide, transport, possess, have present or use cannabis extracts and tinctures. This prohibition is regarding cannabis, is not applicable to pharmacists, dispensing physicians, or veterinarians under certain conditions. In the event a person or a company is in possession of an exemption, Article 7 of the Opium Ordinance, from the Minister of Public Health to extend that the Minister has given an exemption in writing to perform one or more of the above acts referred above. Current situation, in addition to the required import exemptions, Article 6 of the Opium Ordinance, an import authorization is required from the inspectorate for every order of cannabis and cannabis extract or tincture. Before importation, such products will require registration in accordance with Article 5 of the Ordinance Packaging of Medicine, and can also be imported by a company in the possession of an opium exemption. An import authorization from the inspectorate on the behalf of the minister, and the license in accordance with Article 3, Paragraph 1D, in accordance regulating the supply of medicines. Steps to be taken. Based on the governing program 2020-2024, it is the intention of the government of St. Martin to legalize cannabis for medicinal, scientific, religious, and recreational purposes. Considering the interministerial efforts needed in order to realize the legislation of marijuana, it is proposed to establish an interministerial work group with representatives from the Ministry of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, Ministry of Justice, and the Ministry of TI. Establish an executable pathway to legalize safe, healthy, regulated cannabis industry designed to benefit the people of St. Martin by A. Conducting extensive research into the social and economic impact that the legislation of cannabis would have on society of government coffers. B. Conduct a literature review of comparative legislations on cannabis. C. Establish a legal and regulatory structure for cultivation, manufacturing, processing, testing, distribution, and consumption of cannabis products and cannabis concentrate within St. Martin. Draft or amend existing legislation where needed to be suited for the proposed regulatory structure for the depenalization and decriminalization of cannabis possessions, cultivation, and usage for medical, scientific, religious, and recreational purposes. In conclusion, the patients of St. Martin should have legal access to affordable, high-quality medicinal cannabis that is safe through policy of medicinal cannabis and CBD product. The Inspectorate and the Ministry of VSA respectively aim to create means to make this possible as more evidence-based data from the research become available. This policy will be updated as necessary.
Thank you, Minister. Another excellent presentation, if I may say so myself. Members of Parliament, for those that have questions on this agenda point, you can indicate so now. Do we have anyone asking for the floor at this time? MP Emmanuel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I listened to the minister when he made mention that they are looking into legalizing the use of marijuana for medicinal purposes. I want to ask what's the difference between the use of marijuana in the Netherlands and what you're saying is being to be attempted here in St. Martin. I am one for the full out blunt legalization of marijuana, not no medicinal, not this, not that, full out. So I'm trying to understand what's the difference between what we have in the Netherlands, in the coffee shops and all those sort of things, you know, with the different strands and all those sort of things that they use up there in terms of what we want to initiate here in St. Martin. And if that is the case, that we are looking to do it for medicinal purposes, why not follow the same steps, same law, same everything that they have in the Netherlands and bring it here to St. Martin? I mean, after all, we're following Dutch laws for so many different things. So, you know, why don't we just follow the same thing? What's the pros and cons? Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Emmanuel. Any other members of Parliament at this time? That not being the case. Minister, again, thank you for the presentation. Can you go back just to the last slide? Just the last one where you mentioned the policy. Yeah, the policy on medicinal cannabis and CBD products. I'm not sure if this is with Parliament already. Can that also be shared with us? I would like to see that specific one. I guess that was a policy that came out of the, I don't know if that's a ministerial decree or, yeah, if we can please get that, would be great to review. Happy to hear that yes, okay, very good. Also very happy to hear that the intentions as laid out within the governing program are proceeding. Specifically with CBD products, what can you maybe give us an outline on what that looks like in terms of a local person would like the opportunity to enter this industry, to enter this business in St. Martin? There is some sort of procedure to get there. Can we outline what that procedure is like? What are the requirements? Do they have to be a pharmacy? Does the individual have to be a doctor? These type of different things would be helpful for those watching who would like to get into this industry, would be able to participate. Now, I have a similar question that some had in the first agenda point here today as well, because the fact is, CBD products can be bought online, and I know of people for personal use. I don't know if they're engaging in it for business purposes, but I know of some who choose to purchase these products, whether it's gummies, ointments, for pain, the droplets for their headaches and migraines, epilepsy, and so on. Some of them are ordering them online, and a very common place that orders and ships to St. Martin is the website serious.nl. This is a Dutch company because it is allowed in the Netherlands, and they do ship to St. Martin. Now, I hope I ain't busting no bubble here, but this is a very common thing. On top of that, on the French side of St. Martin, again, we have that challenge where people are importing it, let's say, on the French side via Grand Case from Guadeloupe. There are stores in Guadeloupe that sell these products. You can have a package from Air Antilles from Guadeloupe, bring these CBD products to the French side of St. Martin and drive it right over to the Dutch side. So again, I understand the legislative limitations, but how far are we from ensuring that there is a clear path and a fair competitive advantage for local people to get into this industry? Also, to what extent has the inspectorate verified any of the studies related to the medicinal benefits of cannabidiol? We see that there's differing opinions. Some people say there's not really enough high-level studies, but you have, for example, a very decorated doctor like Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who did a whole documentary highlighting the benefits, the medicinal benefits, not just of CBD, but he went further into marijuana as a whole. But has our department really studied it from that medicinal aspect, and specifically CBD? Also from a risk perspective, kind of coming back to my original point, okay, what is the risk associated with having VIX more commonly available to the community? But what would be the risks in having CBD products more commonly available to the community of St. Martin? Those would be my questions at this time. Yeah, and we have a follow-up from MP Emmanuel.
It's not really a follow-up, but I just
Okay.
wanted to inform the minister through you. If you don't know, based on what you made mention, right in Bellevue, on top of Monoprex, the grocery store right there, where the basketball court is, right across there, there's a store called Miniprex. Right upstairs of it, sells CBD products. Right there, open and just there. You know, they sell them freely, normal, right there on the front side, as soon as you cross into Bellevue. Thank you very much.
Yeah, again, totally understanding our legal limitations, but this would be an example where we have, local constituents on the Dutch side frustrated, where they want to get into this industry. Right across the border, it's rampant. Online, it's rampant. And this is now an opportunity where, hey, instead of doing it that way, where we don't collect no TOT if someone imports it online, we definitely don't collect anything if it's bought on the French side. What can we do to get more locals involved in this industry? With that, I'll give the floor to the Honorable Minister or any of your support team.
Very good questions from the members of Parliament. MP, Mr. Chairman, if you would allow me, I'd like to take 20 minutes.
So we will adjourn until, let's just go till 1:30. That'll give us maybe a little mini lunch break. We'll be back at 1:30 with the Minister of VSA. Thank you. Good afternoon once again, members of the Committee of VSA. Honorable Minister has returned with the answers to the questions posed in this agenda point. This is a quick recap for those viewing. The agenda point that we have right now is the steps needed, be it legislatively or otherwise, to allow CBD products to be sold by local businesses. Minister, you have the word.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. I move to the question of MP Emmanuel. What is the difference between the Netherlands? Why are we only allowing it for medicinal and scientific? I also stated that the plan is to legalize cannabis for medicinal, scientific, religious, and recreational purposes. At the moment, our current law allows us to have medicinal and scientific, so we are extending to the law. However, the legislation from the Netherlands is being looked at and taken up in this process. MP Bryson, what are the procedures and requirements for a local to be able to sell CBD? MP and the members of Parliament, the policy has been provided to you, and in there you will see that at the moment the only locals that are permitted to sell CBD products are local pharmacies at the moment. So once the legislation change, which ties into your next question for opportunities for locals, once the legislation changes, there will be opportunities for locals to indulge in this industry, of course. To what extent has the inspectorate analyzed the literature and medicinal benefits of CBD and marijuana as a whole? The policy outlined the scientific and evidence used to develop the policy. In terms of risk, CBD products are often mislabeled, contaminated, counterfeited, or contain undeclared or unknown amount of CBD or THC. But again, the extensive details that you are looking for is in the policy that was provided to Parliament. That's it.
Thank you, Minister, for that elucidation. Are there any other points at this time? Minister, with that, having received the policy, indeed, it's pretty helpful. I think from that we can deduce that, pharmacies would be the ones to do it. Of course, it leaves, that does exclude opportunities for, let's say, the average Joe. Now, the average person interested in getting into that industry wouldn't have that access at the moment, but from what you're indicating, adjustments to that are coming as well. So that is good news as well for the public. Also good news about your work in terms of marijuana legalization as per the governing program. Do you have any closing remarks before we leave today?
I would just like to thank you for having me in Parliament. Thank you to the honorable members of Parliament and to the viewing and listening public. Have a safe and wonderful weekend.
Okay. Thank you all. We've come to the end of this Committee of VSA meeting. I hereby close this meeting. Have a